Sarah and Mark's apartment was small, barely more than 2 rooms crammed into the ground floor of an old building. The walls were thin, the floorboards creaked, and the air always smelled faintly of old coffee and laundry detergent, but to them it was home. It was where they had shared their first meals, their first arguments, and where Mark had finally awkwardly proposed to Sarah, with a ring he'd saved months to buy from a pawn shop. They had been married a week ago, a simple affair at the courthouse followed by a potluck reception in their tiny backyard. Sarah had worn a dress her mother had sewn, a delicate white linen that shimmered in the afternoon sun. Mark, in his only suit, had beamed like the happiest man alive. They were madly in love, the kind of love that made financial struggles seem like minor hurdles, not roadblocks, but a honeymoon. That was a different story. "It's okay, truly," Sarah had told Mark, curling into his side on their threadbare sofa. "We knew it wouldn't happen right away. We have each other. That's all that matters," Mark sighed, running a hand through his sandy hair. "Still, every couple deserves a honeymoon, a real one, not just a week of me working extra shifts at the gas station." Sarah worked at a diner, her tips barely covering the grocery bill. Between them, they made enough to pay rent, keep the lights on, and put food on the table. Dreams of exotic beaches or romantic city escapes. "Remember when we talked about Vegas?" Mark mused, a wistful note in his voice. "Before we knew how expensive everything was," Sarah chuckled. A soft, melancholic sound. "Oh, Vegas, that's like a fairy tale, isn't it? All those lights, the shows, and Elvis. I imagine him just walking around singing on a street corner, all that magic." Mark grinned. "Yeah, the king himself. Imagine seeing him, or even just staying in one of those fancy hotels, you know, just for one night." He gestured vaguely at their chipped coffee table on which sat a stack of bills. "Impossible, I know." He stood up and walked over to their ancient record player, a gift from his grandfather. Carefully, he placed an album on the turntable. The familiar crackle filled the room. Then the smooth, powerful voice of Elvis Presley poured out, singing, "Can't Help Falling in Love." Sarah closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. It was beautiful, comforting. She pictured neon signs, the desert heat, the thrill of a place so utterly different from their quiet, predictable life. For a moment she was there, walking hand in hand with Mark, feeling the vibrant pulse of the city. When the song ended, Mark turned to her, his eyes warm. "One day, Sarah. One day we'll make it there, even if it's just for a day trip." Sarah smiled, but a pang of sadness squeezed her heart. She knew how much Mark wanted this for them, how much he blamed himself for their financial bind, and she wanted it for him too, for them both. A chance to escape, to celebrate their love without worry. Vegas remained a glittering, unattainable mirage on the horizon, a dream deferred. As the next Elvis song started, a more upbeat one, she tried to shake off the melancholy. They had each other, and that was truly the most important thing. But just for a second she wished for a little bit of that Vegas magic to sprinkle over their humble, loving life. The next morning, the sun barely peeking through the dusty blinds, Sarah was already up, meticulously cleaning the tiny kitchen. Mark had left an hour ago for his shift at the gas station, the familiar scent of old coffee and exhaust lingering in his absence. Their daily rhythm was predictable, comforting in its routine. But today, Sarah felt a restless energy she couldn't quite place. Maybe it was the lingering dream of Vegas, or just the usual Monday morning blues. The phone rang, a jarring sound in the quiet apartment. Sarah glanced at the caller. Usually these were telemarketers or wrong numbers, but for some reason she felt compelled to answer. "Hello," she said, her voice a little wary. "Good morning, is this Sarah Miller?" A smooth, professional voice asked. "Yes, this is Sarah. Who's speaking?" "My name is Robert Reynolds," the man replied. "I'm calling from Colonel Tom Parker's office." Sarah frowned. Colonel Tom Parker? The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. She assumed it was some kind of marketing survey or a clever scam. "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number," she said, already reaching to hang up. "Please, Mrs. Miller, wait." Robert interjected, his tone still perfectly even. "This is regarding your recent wedding." Sarah froze. Her wedding? How would anyone from a random office know about her wedding? It had been a small private affair. "My wedding?" she repeated slowly, a knot forming in her stomach. "What about it?" "We understand you and your husband, Mark, were unable to afford a honeymoon," Robert continued as if reading from a script. "Mr. Presley heard about your situation, and he was very touched." Sarah's hand, holding the receiver, started to tremble. Mr. Presley, could he mean? No, it was impossible. "Elvis Presley?" she blurted out, a little laugh escaping her lips. "Are you serious? Is this some kind of joke?" "Mrs. Miller, I assure you this is no joke." Robert's voice remained unruffled. Mr. Presley was reading an article about local human interest stories, something about small Harfican spending, and your story stood out. He admired your dedication to each other and felt you deserved something special. He would like to offer you his private suite at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. For 1 week, all expenses paid. Include to on-trip air fry. Sarah sat down abruptly on the nearest kitchen chair, the sound of the chair scraping against the linoleum echoing in the small room. Her mind reeled. Elvis Presley, his private suite, a spavatouille. "Who is this really?" she demanded, her voice rising in disbelief. "Mark, is that you? Or Mike? Tell me this isn't real." "Mrs. Miller, I understand your skepticism," Robert said, a hint of amusement now in his voice. "I'll be sending a confirmation package via courier this afternoon, with all the details, tickets, itinerary, contact numbers, everything you'll need." He rattled off dates and names and hotel details with such precision that Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. It sounded real, terrifyingly real. "We simply ask that you enjoy yourselves," Robert concluded. "Mr. Presley believes everyone deserves a little magic, especially young love like yours. Please consider it his wedding gift to you both. Do you have any questions?" Sarah could only stammer, "No, I don't know what to say." "Then I'll let you go." "Mrs. The package should arrive by 3 p.m. We look forward to hearing about your wonderful honeymoon. Goodbye." The line clicked dead. Sarah stared at the phone in her hand, then slowly lowered it to the table. Her heart was pounding a frantic drum against her ribs. Elvis Presley, his suite, Las Vegas. It couldn't be. It simply couldn't. The thought sent a dizzying wave of shock and exhilaration through her. She had to call Mark. He wouldn't believe her, not for a second, but she had to try. Her dream deferred suddenly, impossibly, seemed to shimmer on the edge of reality. Sarah gripped the phone, her fingers still trembling, and dialed Mark's number at the gas station. He answered, his voice muffled by the sounds of pumps and distant traffic. "Hey, everything all right? You sound weird." "Mark, you are not going to believe this," Sarah blurted out, her words tumbling over each other. "I just got a call from Colonel Tom Parker's office. They said Elvis Presley wants to give us his suite in Vegas for our honeymoon. All expenses paid." Silence on the other end. Then a burst of laughter. "Very funny, honey, you and Mike putting me on. Tell him I'm busy." "No, Mark, I swear it wasn't Mike. It was a man named Robert Reynolds, and he sounded so professional. And he said Elvis heard about our wedding and he wants to give us his suite for a whole week with flights and spending money. And a package is coming this afternoon." Sarah was practically shouting, tears of frustration and disbelief welling in her eyes. Mark's laughter died down, replaced by a confused silence. "Sarah, honey, take a breath. Are you feeling okay? Did you drink too much coffee?" "I'm fine, it's so crazy." Okay, Mark said, his voice softening, a hint of concern creeping in. "Look, I'll be home as soon as I can. Just try to calm down, all right? We'll figure it out." He hung up, clearly convinced she was either stressed or hallucinating. Sarah paced their small living room, her mind racing. It was too detailed to be a simple prank, and the name Robert Reynolds sounded so official. Precisely at 3 p.m., a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Sarah jumped, her heart leaping into her throat. She peered through the peephole. A man in a dark uniform stood outside, holding a flat, padded envelope courier. She opened the door, her hand shaking as she accepted the package. It was heavy, substantial. The return address was a law firm in Los Angeles, not a joke shop. Inside, she found airline tickets for 2 first class, departing next Tuesday. Hotel confirmation for the King's Suite at the International Hotel. A pre-loaded credit card with a shockingly large sum. And tucked beneath it all, a crisp white envelope with a handwritten note. It wasn't signed by Elvis himself, but by a staff member, confirming everything and wishing them a magical stay, as per Mr. Presley's wishes. Just as Sarah was rereading the itinerary for the 5th time, Mark burst through the door looking harried. "All right, what's going on? Are you all right?" He saw the package on the table. The airline tickets fanned out. His eyes widened. He picked up the hotel confirmation, then the pre-loaded credit card. His jaw dropped. "No way," he whispered, picking up the handwritten note. He read it, then looked at Sarah, his eyes mirroring her own astonishment. This is real!" They spent the next hour in a whirlwind of disbelief and excitement. They called the airline, their names were indeed on the manifest. They called the International Hotel, the King's Suite was indeed reserved under their name. It was all real. "We're going to Vegas," Mark breathed, sitting down heavily on the sofa, a look of pure wonder on his face. "Elvis Presley is sending us to Vegas." The news spread like wildfire among their small circle of family and friends. Sarah's mother cried happy tears. Mark's father just kept shaking his head in amazement. No one could quite believe it. But the tangible evidence in the form of tickets and confirmations made it undeniable. The next few days were a blur of nervous anticipation. Sarah fretted about what to wear. "I don't have anything fancy enough for Vegas for a suite like that." Mark hugged her, his smile wide. "Honey, it doesn't matter what you wear. We're being given this incredible gift. Just be yourself. Be beautiful. They cleaned their apartment meticulously, leaving it spotless as if preparing for royalty to visit in their absence. They bought a new small suitcase. Their old ones were falling apart. Every night they talked about what they would do, what they would see. Glittering image of Vegas that had once seemed so distant, so impossible, was now only days away. And it was all thanks to the kindness of a stranger, a legend, a king. The weight was almost unbearable. The journey began, not with a grand fanfare, but with a familiar clunky ride in their friend's beat-up pickup truck to the small regional airport. They clutched their brand-new modest suitcase and a precious envelope of documents like it contained pure gold. Mark, usually so calm, was buzzing with an energy Sarah hadn't seen since their wedding day. "First class," he kept murmuring, shaking his head. "I've never even seen the first-class section on a plane." The small regional airport felt like a gateway to another dimension. They checked in with a nervous excitement, half expecting someone to tell them it was all a mistake. The airline clerk, with a polite smile, confirmed their first-class boarding passes. Stepping onto the plane, they felt an immediate shift. The seats were plush, the legroom immense. A flight attendant offered them sparkling cider before they even took off. Sarah looked out the window as the plane ascended, their tiny apartment building shrinking below them, and felt a rush of unreality. Hours later, the landscape below transformed. The vast empty desert suddenly erupted into a dazzling, glittering sprawl of light. Las Vegas. It was even more magnificent than Sarah had imagined. A city spun from dreams and neon. As they disembarked, the dry desert heat hit them, a stark contrast to the cool cabin air. The airport was a flurry of activity, but they felt a sense of purpose. Following the instructions, they made their way to the designated pickup area, and there it was, a sleek black limousine gleaming under the bright sun. A chauffeur in a crisp uniform stood beside it, holding a small sign. On it, in elegant script, were 2 words: Mr. and Mrs. Miller. Mark let out a low whistle. This is really happening. The chauffeur, a polite man with kind eyes, opened the door for them. The interior of the limo was cool and spacious, with soft leather seats and tinted windows. They sank into the luxury, feeling like movie stars on their way to a premiere. The drive down the strip was a kaleidoscope of flashing lights, towering hotels, and impossible architecture. The Luxor Pyramid, the Eiffel Tower replica, the Roman-themed Caesar's Palace, each building more outlandish than the last. Sarah pressed her face to the window, her mouth slightly agape. It was overwhelming, dazzling, completely unlike anything they had ever experienced. Finally, the limo pulled up to a grand entrance, one that dwarfed their entire apartment building. "The International Hotel," the chauffeur announced. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Miller." The lobby was a symphony of marble, velvet, and hushed elegance. Chandeliers hung like sparkling constellations, and the air hummed with a quiet energy. They approached the check-in desk, feeling slightly out of place in their simple clothes, but the clerk, a woman with perfectly coiffed hair, greeted them with an almost deferential smile. "Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, welcome. We've been expecting you. Your suite is ready." She handed them a heavy, ornate key card. "The King Suite. Enjoy your stay." The elevator ride was silent, the numbers climbing steadily. Sarah's heart pounded with each floor. This wasn't just any suite. It was his suite, the suite of Elvis Presley. When the doors opened, they stepped into a private hallway, plush carpet silencing their footsteps. A single grand door stood before them. Mark slid the key card into the lock. A soft click echoed. He pushed the door open. And then they saw. The suite stretched before them, vast and opulent beyond their wildest imaginings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking panoramic view of the glittering Vegas skyline. The living area was immense, with plush golden sofas, dark wood furniture, and shimmering silk drapes pulled back to reveal the city. A grand piano sat in one corner, its keys gleaming under the soft lights. A welcome basket sat on a polished table, overflowing with exotic fruits, expensive chocolates, and a bottle of chilled champagne. Tucked into the basket was a small cream-colored envelope. Mark carefully opened it. Inside, a simple card. "Enjoy your stay, folks. This one's on me. Pay." Sarah's eyes welled up, mocking her close. They just stood there, speechless, taking in the impossible luxury. It was real. Every unbelievable detail was real. And it was all for them, for their honeymoon. The first morning in the King's Suite was unlike any morning Sarah and Mark had ever known. They woke not to the familiar creak of their old bed, but to the luxurious embrace of a king-sized mattress, so soft it felt like sleeping on a cloud. "If it's a dream, don't wake me up." They lay there for a long time, just taking it all in, the quiet opulence, the incredible view. Eventually, the promise of discovery pulled them from the bed. Their first stop was the bathroom, which was larger than their entire living room back home. It featured a huge sunken jacuzzi tub, a separate walk-in shower with multiple spray nozzles, and marble contours that sparkled under the soft lighting. Sarah gasped, "I could live in here." Mark, meanwhile, had found the walk-in closet, a space so big it could probably hold their entire apartment's worth of clothes. "Look at this, Sarah," and a little built-in steamer for clothes. Returning to the main living area, Mark spotted something in a discreetly lit alcove. Was a beautiful vintage acoustic guitar displayed on a stand, a small plaque beneath it, read, "Property of Ipe." "Wow," Mark whispered reverently, running a hand over the polished wood of the display case. His guitar right here. It was a small personal touch that made the suite feel even more special, a true glimpse into the king's world. They decided to order room service or breakfast, something they'd only ever dreamed of. Mark chuckled as he read from the menu. "Eggs Benedict smoked salmon, fresh squeezed orange juice. I think the last time I had orange juice, it was from a concentrate." When the lavish breakfast arrived, served by a polite waiter on a rolling cart covered with a crisp white tablecloth, they ate slowly, savoring every bite. The coffee was rich, the pastries flaky, the fruit impossibly fresh. They sat by the window watching the city slowly come alive, feeling like royalty. After breakfast, they explored more of the suite's features. There was a private bar fully stocked with an array of liquors and mixers they'd never heard of. A state-of-the-art sound system that filled the entire suite with crystal-clear music. And then, the ultimate discovery, a private plunged pool on a secluded part of their balcony, overlooking a quieter section of the hotel grounds. A pool, Sarah shrieked, her voice echoing in the vast space. Just for us. They spent the rest of the morning swimming, splashing, and just floating in the cool water, the Vegas sun warm on their skin. The stresses of their daily lives, the constant worry about money, faded away like a bad dream. For the first time in what felt like forever, they were truly relaxed, truly present with each other. Later in the afternoon, Mark found a stack of classic albums near the stereo system, many of them by Elvis, but also other artists. He put on some slow jazz, and they danced slowly in the living room, a soft, intimate sway that spoke volumes about their love. "This is the most incredible gift," Sarah whispered, her head on Mark's shoulder. "It's not just the fancy suite or the free food. It's this chance to just be us without worrying about anything. This peace." Mark held her tighter. "He truly is the king, isn't he?" As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple, they watched the city lights flicker on, one by one, like a million scattered diamonds. The King's Suite wasn't just a place to stay. It was an oasis, a haven of tranquility and luxury, where their love could truly flourish, unburdened and free. It felt like a dream. They never wanted to end. After a day of basking in the suite's unparalleled luxury, Sarah and Mark decided it was time to venture beyond their private oasis. King's Suite was magnificent, but Vegas beckoned with its glittering promise of excitement. They wanted to experience the hotel, perhaps even catch a glimpse of the vibrant energy that permeated the strip. They dressed in their nicest clothes, still not quite Vegas chic, but the best they had, and took the elevator downstairs. A new confidence in their steps. The lobby, bustling with guests, still felt immense, but they no longer felt quite so out of place. They were, after all, the special guests of Elvis Presley. As they walked through the grand casino floor, a symphony of slot machine jingles and polite chatter, they were mesmerized by the sheer scale of it all. People sat at blackjack tables, their faces a mix of concentration and thrill. Waitresses in crisp uniforms weaved through the crowd, carrying trays of drinks. They decided to find a casual restaurant for lunch. As they navigated the labyrinthine hallways, Sarah noticed a few lingering glances. A quiet whisper here and there. At first she thought she was imagining it, but then, as they passed a small group of hotel staff, she distinctly heard one of them murmur, "That's the couple, isn't it? The ones in the King's Suite?" Mark, ever the pragmatist, leaned in. "Think they know who we are?" Sarah shrugged, a nervous smile playing on her lips. "Maybe, or maybe we just look like confused tourists." At the restaurant, a hostess immediately led them to a prime table by the window. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Miller," she said with an extra warm smile. "It's a pleasure to have you." It felt different, more attentive than the usual restaurant experience. It was clear that word had gotten around. As they ate their delicious lunch, enjoying the subtle buzz of being recognized, they overheard snippets of conversation from tables around them. People were talking about Elvis, his upcoming shows, his schedule, even little anecdotes about his generosity or his playful antics. It was like being on the inside of a secret world. "He's performing next week," one man at a nearby table whispered to his companion. "Heard he's planning something special." Security's been extra tight around his floor," another added, referring to the executive level where Elvis also had private offices. The conversations only fueled their intrigue. Would they actually see him? They hadn't dared to even hope for such an encounter, content with the suite itself. But now, being so close to his world, the possibility felt tantalizingly real. Later that afternoon, they decided to check out one of the smaller, non-Elvis shows the hotel offered a magic act. The tickets, of course, were complimentary. They sat in comfortable velvet seats, mesmerized by the illusions and the showmanship. It was a perfect encapsulation of Vegas. Extravagant, enchanting, and utterly captivating. As they left the theater, they walked past a large display case filled with Elvis memorabilia, a sparkling jumpsuit, a gold record, personal photos. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. This man, this legend, had reached out to them, two ordinary people, and given them this extraordinary experience. They spent the evening wandering through the elegant shops within the hotel window, shopping at stores they could never afford to enter. They felt like they were living in a movie, starring in a life that wasn't their own, and yet it was their own. For this precious week, as they returned to the King's Suite, the city lights twinkling like a million fallen stars outside their window, Sarah curled up next to Mark. "It's like being part of his universe," she whispered. "Like we're just a tiny part of the magic he creates here." Mark nodded, pulling her closer. "And maybe, just maybe, we'll get to see the wizard himself." The thought hung in the air, a silent, exciting wish that seemed to gain strength with every passing moment in the king's domain. Their honeymoon in the King's Suite had been an incredible experience, but Sarah and Mark knew that to truly experience Vegas, they needed to step out into the heart of the city itself, the famous Las Vegas Strip. The next morning, armed with their pre-loaded credit card and a sense of adventurous spirit, they ventured forth. Stepping out of the International Hotel and onto the bustling sidewalk, they were immediately enveloped by the sensory overload of the Strip. The air thrummed with a vibrant energy. Towering hotels, each an architectural marvel, rose into the sky, their facades adorned with colossal video screens and dazzling neon signs. Music spilled from open doorways, the distant jingle of slot machines mingling with the roar of traffic and the chatter of thousands of voices. It was a symphony of excess, a playground for the senses. "Look," Sarah exclaimed, pointing at the Bellagio fountains across the street, which were just beginning their mesmerizing dance. "They're even more amazing in person." They walked hand in hand, their necks craning to take it all in. They passed the Eiffel Tower replica at Paris, Las Vegas, so realistic it almost felt like they'd been transported to France. They marveled at the Venetian's Grand Canal, complete with gondolas gliding through its waters, carrying singing gondoliers. They even took a short romantic gondola ride, themselves giggling like children as the gondolier serenaded them. The sheer scale of everything was staggering. They entered a few of the other themed hotels, each one a world unto itself. Kaiser's Palace, with its Roman grandeur, the pyramid-shaped Luxor, the New York-themed New York. New York, with its iconic roller coaster. Every corner turned revealed another spectacle, another attraction designed to awe and entertain. They spent a small portion of their generous spending money on souvenirs, a sparkling keychain, a deck of cards from a casino, a tiny replica of the Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas. These humble mementos felt infinitely precious, tangible proof of their impossible trip. For lunch, they found a charming Italian restaurant in one of the hotels, a place they would never have dreamed of dining in back home. The food was exquisite, the service impeccable. They shared a bottle of sparkling water, clinking their glasses together. "To Elvis," Mark said, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "To dreams coming true," Sarah added, her smile radiant. As the afternoon wore on, they decided to catch a show. Not an Elvis show. They felt that might be too much, almost sacrilegious after the personal gift they'd received. Instead, they opted for a dazzling Cirque du Soleil performance, a breathtaking display of acrobatics, music, and surreal artistry. They sat spellbound, completely immersed in the magic unfolding before them. Later, as darkness fell, and the Strip truly came alive, they found a quiet spot to just sit and watch the world go by. The neon lights pulsed and glowed, painting the night sky in vibrant hues. The energy was electric, a constant hum of excitement. Sarah leaned her head on Mark's shoulder. "This is beyond anything I could have imagined," she whispered. so different from our life, but it's making me appreciate our life even more. And us." Mark wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "It shows us what's possible, doesn't it? Not just financially, but what kindness can do, what love can do." The extravagance of Vegas, the sheer opulence of it all, didn't make them feel like they wanted to trade their simple life for it. Instead, it highlighted the profound strength and beauty of their own bond. This extraordinary experience wasn't changing who they were, but rather deepening their appreciation for each other, for the simple joys they shared, and for the incredible, unexpected generosity that had allowed them this fleeting, magical moment in the heart of the glittering desert. Back in the king's suite that evening, as they prepared for bed, a soft knock came at their door. Sarah opened it to find a hotel concierge holding a silver tray with a small, elegantly folded note. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," he said with a polite bow, "you are invited to a private dinner in the Crystal Ballroom tonight at 7 p.m. Dress code: formal." Sarah's eyes widened and she exchanged a frantic look with Mark. Formal? They barely owned anything more formal than Mark's wedding suit and Sarah's linen dress. "Oh, thank you," Sarah stammered. "But formal wear?" The concierge smiled knowingly. "Mr. Presley anticipated you might not have packed for such an occasion. There's a small private boutique on the 3rd floor. Please consider anything you choose. There is a gift from him for the evening." Relief washed over Sarah. Elvis had truly thought of everything. They spent the next hour in a delightful frenzy at the boutique, choosing outfits that made them feel like movie stars. Mark found a sleek dark suit that fit him perfectly, making him look taller and more sophisticated. Sarah chose a shimmering midnight blue gown that flowed elegantly, making her feel like a princess. Precisely 7 p.m., they arrived at the Crystal Ballroom, their hearts pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. The room was not vast and crowded as they might have expected. Instead, it was an intimate setting, softly lit with several round tables, exquisitely set with fine china and crystal. Soft jazz music played in the background. A maitre d' greeted them, guiding them to a table already occupied by a few well-dressed individuals. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, welcome. Please allow me to introduce you. This is Billy, one of Mr. Presley's lead guitarists, and his wife Clara. And this is Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Presley's personal security chief." Sarah and Mark found themselves shaking hands with people who were part of Elvis Presley's inner circle. They were warm, welcoming, and genuinely interested in their story. "So you're the lucky couple Elvis took a shine to," Billy the guitarist said with a friendly grin. "He's a good man. Elvis is always looking out for people." They talked about their life back home, their simple wedding, and their disbelief at this incredible gift. The conversation flowed easily, fueled by delicious food and sparkling champagne. They felt accepted, a part of this exclusive gathering, even if just for one night. Throughout the dinner, the conversation often turned to Elvis, his upcoming performances, his dedication to his music, his generosity. Everyone spoke of him with respect and affection, painting a picture of a man who was not just a superstar, but a truly kind and humble person. Sarah kept glancing at the entrance, a flicker of anticipation in her eyes. Would he come? The air in the room felt thick with unspoken expectation. No one explicitly said he would be there, but the way his friends spoke, the almost reverent tone, suggested his presence was imminent. The main course was served, a delectable prime rib, and still the king had not appeared. A small wave of disappointment rippled through Sarah, quickly followed by a feeling of guilt. They had already been given so much. Seeing him in person would just be the icing on an already extraordinary cake. Just as coffee was being poured, a subtle shift occurred in the room. Conversations quieted slightly. Heads began to turn towards the entrance. Sarah felt a prickle of electricity on her skin. Then he walked in, not with a grand announcement or a sudden spotlight, but with a quiet, confident grace. Elvis Presley. He was dressed simply in a dark, open-necked shirt and trousers, but he exuded an undeniable aura of power and charisma. His hair was perfectly coiffed, his smile warm, and his famous sideburns were exactly as they appeared in pictures. A hush fell over the room, not of awe, but of respect. He moved easily, greeting each guest with a handshake or a nod, a genuine warmth in his eyes. Sarah's heart was thrumming, her palms suddenly damp. He was even more handsome, more monadic in person. As he made his way around the tables, talking briefly to each group, Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. He was coming closer, closer to their table. This was it, the moment she had only dared to dream about. Elvis Presley stopped at their table, his famous blue eyes twinkling as he looked at Sarah and Mark. He extended a hand first to Mark, then to Sarah. His grip was firm, warm. "So," he said, his voice a rich southern drawl that was even more captivating in person, "you're the lucky ones, Mark, Sarah, right?" "Yes, Mr. Presley," Mark managed, his voice slightly hoarse with awe. "Heard you two deserved a break." Elvis continued, a kind smile gracing his lips. "Folks told me your story. A true love like yours. That's something special. Gotta celebrate that." Sarah could only nod, tears pricking at her eyes. She tried to speak, but her throat felt constricted. "Are you enjoying your stay? The suite treating you well?" he asked, his gaze warm and direct. It's beyond anything we could have imagined, Mr. Presley." Sarah finally found her voice, though it was barely a whisper. "Thank you. We don't even know how to thank you." Elvis chuckled softly. "No thanks needed, honey. Just seeing you two happy. That's thanks enough. Love's a precious thing, you gotta nurture it, especially when times are tough." He paused, his eyes thoughtful. "Don't you ever let the world dim that light between you, all right?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet-covered box. He opened it, revealing a beautiful silver-toned locket, simple but elegant. "A little something for the missus," he said, handing it to Sarah. "Keep it close. A reminder of what love can bring, I suppose." Then he turned to Mark. "And for you, son." He pulled a pristine signed photograph of himself from an inner jacket pocket. "A little piece of the king, just for your wall. Something to remember this by." Mark took the photo, his hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Presley, this is incredible." Elvis smiled, a genuine, heart-warming smile that seemed to light up the room. "Now you two go on and finish your dinner. Enjoy the rest of your week. Don't worry about a thing." He gave them a final, warm look, a brief nod, then moved on to the next table, just as smoothly and quietly as he had arrived. He stayed for only another few minutes, greeting a couple more people. Then, with a discreet nod to his security, he made his exit, leaving behind a lingering warmth and an almost palpable sense of wonder. Sarah looked down at the locket in her hand, then at Mark, who was staring at the signed photograph, as if it were the Rosetta Stone. They were both speechless, overwhelmed by the kindness they had just experienced. It wasn't just the gifts or the suite or the dinner. It was the personal touch, the genuine warmth, the fact that Elvis Presley, the king, had taken a moment to connect with them, to acknowledge their love, and to share a piece of his extraordinary world. The rest of the dinner passed in a happy blur. They ate, they talked, but mostly they just basked in the glow of the encounter. This week had been a dream, but meeting Elvis had made it real in the most profound way possible. Their gratitude was immense, a silent, powerful feeling that filled their hearts to bursting. This experience hadn't just been a honeymoon, it had been a life-affirming moment, a testament to the extraordinary power of kindness. The final morning in the King's suite arrived, bringing with it a bittersweet mix of emotions. The sun rose over the glittering Vegas skyline, casting a golden glow through the panoramic windows. But the magic of the suite felt tinged with the quiet sadness of departure. Past week had been an unbelievable dream, a bubble of luxury and wonder, and now it was time for it to burst. Sarah and Mark moved slowly, carefully, as if trying to prolong every last second. They took one last leisurely bath in the enormous tub, ordered one final lavish room service breakfast, and savored the feel of the plush carpets beneath their bare feet. Mark carefully placed Elvis's signed photograph into a protective sleeve, then gently tucked it into his suitcase. Sarah, meanwhile, had the silver locket around her neck, its cool metal a constant reminder of the king's incredible generosity. "How do you even say goodbye to something like this?" Sarah whispered, looking out at the city spread below them. "You don't really," Mark replied, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "You just carry it with you. All the memories, all the good feelings." Before they left, Sarah found a pen and a sheet of the hotel's elegant stationery. She sat down at the grand piano, though she couldn't play a note, and carefully composed a handwritten note to Elvis. "Dear Mr. Presley, words feel completely inadequate to express our gratitude for this unbelievable gift. This week has been more than just a honeymoon. It has been a true blessing, a reminder of the incredible kindness that exists in the world. We, Sarah and Mark Miller, are just an ordinary young couple, and you, the king, chose to share your extraordinary world with us. We will cherish every single moment, every detail of this incredible suite, every memory of your generous spirit. For the rest of our lives, thank you for making our dream come true, for giving us hope, and for showing us the true meaning of warmth and hospitality. With deepest appreciation, Sarah and Mark Miller." They left the note prominently on the polished dining table next to a small token tip for the housekeeping staff, a gesture that felt laughably small in comparison to the generosity they had received. The limousine waited for them once again, carrying them silently back to the airport. The first-class flight felt less alien this time. But the return to their regional airport in their friend's pickup truck was a jolt back to reality. Back in their small apartment, it was exactly as they had left. The familiar scent of old coffee and laundry detergent greeted them. Their threadbare sofa and chipped coffee table seemed smaller, humbler than ever. But as they unpacked, something felt different. They hung Elvis's signed photograph on the wall above their small cluttered bookcase. Sarah wore the locket every day. These weren't just souvenirs. They were anchors, tangible reminders of a week that had transformed them. Their life didn't suddenly become easier. Mark still worked long shifts at the gas station, and Sarah still waited tables at the diner. The bills still piled up. Now, when things felt overwhelming, they would look at the photograph, or Sarah would touch the locket around her neck, and a quiet sense of hope would fill them. The honeymoon hadn't just been a vacation. It had been an investment in their love. It had strengthened their bond, shown them a glimpse of what was possible, and instilled in them a profound belief in the power of kindness. They had gone to Vegas as a struggling young couple, and they had returned as a couple enriched not by wealth, but by an unforgettable experience and the extraordinary generosity of a true king. Their future still held challenges, but now it felt brighter, infused with the magic of a dream that had against all odds come true.